So we're going to start with the prompt. You have 9 proofs to write, and this seems to be the biggest point of confusion. You have a total of 9 proofs to write. Of those 9, 3 must be 2-column, 3 must be paragraph, and then the last 3 are up to you and how you want to do them. I actually have a chart a little bit further down that'll help you organize exactly what you're doing to make sure that you've covered everything you want. I'll show you how to use the chart as I intended so that you have everything laid out properly. So using the 9 theorems below, so I am assigning the 9 that you must do, but I'm not telling you how you have to do those proofs. I'm not going to tell you if it has to be a 2-column. I'm not going to tell you if it has to be a paragraph proof. You get to choose. Keep this in mind. If I asked you, sorry, one of the cats just jumped up on the window. Oh, yeah, you guys can see her. If I were to ask you to define the word cat, you wouldn't say a cat is a cat, right? That kind of fails the whole idea of clarifying that point. When you're writing these proofs, make sure you're not using your proof in your proof. And what I mean by that is you can't prove the vertical angles theorem by saying these 2 angles are vertical angles and therefore they're congruent. You have to come up with a different way to do it, and that's what we're going to get to here probably around 8:30 once I get over just introducing the whole thing in depth. All right. So you'll see that I have basic examples throughout the document for the basic structure so that you know what to do. When I give you the basic structure of the paragraph proof, it's literally a fill in the blank, and as long as you follow those fill in the blanks, you will get most of the credit right, as long as you ensure that every one of your steps chains together and does not miss any information getting from your hypothesis to your conclusion. All right. So here's the part that I tried to make a little easier for everyone, because I was getting a lot of questions about how do we know if we've done enough of everything. So there are 9 theorems here. And of these 9, 3 of these must be paragraph proof and 3 must be 2-column. So what I would recommend is, as you're doing this assignment, just have something like this, or even just print this one part out and have it handy where you can say, when I did the vertical angle theorem, I wrote a paragraph proof. Same side interior angles, I did a 2-column. I did a 2-column here, here, and here, but I also did this and this. Right now, I have 3 in paragraph and I have 3 in 2-column. That means everything that's left can be done however I want. Just make sure you have at least 3 check boxes in each column. So 3 here. So let's put minimum. And then everything else is up to you guys and how you want to do it. But any questions on how you know if you have everything here that you should have? A minimum of 3 each, but you can do 3 paragraph and then 6 2-column. That's all the requirements satisfied. The 2-column is what we're going to do next. There's 2 types of proof we write. We write a paragraph proof and a 2-column proof. And when I scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see both types. Couple things before I show you the 2-column and the paragraph. Make sure every proof starts on its own page. That doesn't mean each proof is limited to 1 page. You can do a 10-page proof. Just make sure you put page break after QED or at the end of your 2-column to make sure that you have shown me that you intended to use or not go any further than where you were. That was your final answer, and that's where you're staying. I started doing this because students would turn this in, and I would leave notes on it and saying there's a few more steps and say, well, I'm sorry, I meant to keep going. We know that when we end a proof, we write QED if it's paragraph, and if it's a 2-column, we put the conclusion on the bottom line. But just one extra layer of you showing me that you are good to go is that you create a page break so I know that you intended to stop there. All 9, every proof needs its own original photo. So if I'm looking at this, I would walk around and here I would find a photo for vertical angles theorem. I cannot use that photo again, so I have to make sure that I have 9 original photos, one for each theorem that we have to cover. at the end of this, when we get to about 9:30, 9:45, what we did in the last class, and we'll do it in this class, is I'll just ask you guys to give me an idea. Just say an object. We'll go on Google, pull up a picture of it, and then I'll show you where you or how you can use one of these 9 theorems. One of the most intimidating parts of this has historically been students saying, I have no idea where to find these in the real world. Once you start seeing them, that's one of the easiest things you can do. I've been doing this long enough now that I look at things all the time and go, oh, that'd be great for the writing assignment. That'd be great. My wife and I were walking through the woods, and I was like, whoa, there's a perfect triangle on the ground. Let's take a picture. Or that tree fell over to make a triangle. It actually gets to be a little bit disruptive to your normal life as you get used to doing this. Here I have this, using a protractor is the best way to measure your given angle, and I'll show you what I mean by given. You're always, especially on the alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, going to want to have a given angle, because that's what you're trying to prove, right? Something's congruent or something is supplementary. I'm not going to say that you have to put your protractor down on the paper and show me proof. What I'm asking for, and let's see, is something, that is a little easier. It just needs to be common sense. If I have this situation on my paper, I'm not going to say that this angle is 140 degrees, right? That's an acute angle. So what I really need you guys to do, since this is geometry and we have a lot of freedom here, is just make sure that if you're showing an acute angle, you pick an acute measure. If you're showing an obtuse angle, we're not going to call this 3 degrees. We would call it something like 140 degrees. That's definitely greater than 140 degrees, but I don't need that to prove anything, right? Because when we write a proof, that means it works for all angles in that range. So just make sure it makes common sense before you do it, if you don't want to use a protractor or if you're having trouble with the protractor. There's no minimum page requirement. You can do this in 9 pages plus part 2. I don't recommend it, but it is definitely possible if you're really good at writing these and you spend more time looking at what I'll show you. I'm going to call the flow of your work. If you sit down and you write it and refine it and refine it and refine it, you could do this entire project in 9 pages. And I mean 3 or 4 sentences per paragraph proof and 4 steps per 2-column proof. The problem with trying to cut so much of the fat off or the extra off is that you're going to run the risk of having an incomplete step or a step with a gap. So I'm not going to recommend you do that, but it is possible. There's no maximum length, there's no minimum length. The only length I'm looking for is a set of 9 complete proofs, 3 of which are written as paragraphs, 3 of which are written as 2-column proofs.